And we've learned the story of Hannah, and we've also we've learned the laws of Saita, the laws of a woman who the husband suspects maybe has sinned with another, that his wife sinned with another man, and that she drinks the Saita water. And if she actually sinned, she ends up dying. Her body blows up, and her legs fall off, and she dies. And the flip side is, if she didn't sin, she gets blessed with Benizra Zera, which we said has two understandings. The simple understanding seems to be that she will be blessed with children. And in our Gemara, it says that's the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. And Rabbi Akiva cannot imagine that, because he says, if so, all the those that don't have children, anyone who's an akara, is going to use this option and be able to have a child. And it's going to cause people to sort of do a slight sin in a sense that they'll enter an area, a secluded area, and create issues of improper modesty, not being modest enough. And so Rabbi Akiva says that it can't mean literally. It must mean a blessing regarding children, and it'll be either an easier birth, or the children will be if you only had girls, you'll have boys. If you only had dark children, you'll have white children. If you only had one, you'll have two, and so on. And this opinion, Rabbi Akiva would learn, Ra'oi Tira is just the Dibra Torah Koloshen B'nei Adam. The Torah speaks in a language of man, and he won't use this extra story that we understand that happened with Hannah. He will not see that in the verse. In other words, he doesn't see that in the verse because he sees the verse to be just the typical way the pasuk sometimes uses a verse that says words doubly. So it'll say Ra'oi Tira is not surprising that it says a word and it repeats it. It's common, that's the way people speak, and therefore the Torah speaks in the language that people speak. And the other opinion says this is a hint to this whole story, that Hannah said to Hashem that she was really saying this to Hashem, or she was thinking this to Hashem, that either you give me a blessing, or I'm going to use this plan of Saita and utilize this way of manipulating the way things work, and be able to have a child, even though it doesn't seem like, naturally I was supposed to have a child, but now through using these means, it seems that I will manipulate the system and have a child. Yes, Ben.
Well, if you're saying that for those that have one child will have two, that's exactly what Hannah is talking about, having another child.
What do you mean, having another child? She didn't have even
one.
Well,
she doesn't matter, but there'll be Zera, and she'll have a child, like the other one will have a second child.
I'm not sure I understand.
If you have a second child, it's the same issue. You're having a child. After you secluded yourself, you'll have a child.
Yeah.
Even though you had already one, now you have two.
The point that opinion is understanding is that if you only have single births, now you'll have twin births.
Oh, twin birth. Okay.
Twin births.
Not a second child. You'll have twin births. Okay.
Right. Yes, Susan.
I don't understand how Hannah could give permission that her husband go with another woman, marry a second woman, because of being childless. I don't quite understand that.
That is not anything that we did not mention that at all in our discussion.
I know.
Here. We're talking about Chana, that she herself is going to hang out with another man, not to get married, but to cause her husband to suspect her.
Not to get married.
We are not talking about her husband doing something wrong. We're talking about her doing something wrong.
So she has no intention of getting married to another man.
No, she is just causing her husband to suspect her, then warn her, and then test her and find out that she's innocent.
Okay.
That's what we're doing. And then this way she will end up with a child.
I see. Okay, thank you.
So the interesting thing is David had asked this question, and I've been trying to figure out an answer. David, are you here with us? See, you're behind the.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Did you get my email?
I don't check my emails every day.
I sent it on Friday, but okay, I guess not.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I came up with a few answers. David asked what I think is a very good question of how does Rabbi Akiva in our Gemara, he seems to learn the verse, not the usual way. Like, how does he just? The verse seems to say pretty clearly, V'nizra zera, she will have a child. Rabbi Akiva is coming and saying that it's not exactly so. Doesn't mean that. It means, he sort of switches the simple meaning of the verse. Now, that question, really, if you look at Rashi on the Chumash, you can ask it even further, because on the Chumash, Rashi is meant to give always the most simple meaning of the verse. So you would think Rashi would say that she will have a child, right? Like Rabbi Yishmael's view here in our Gemara, right? That's V'nizra zera. Now, if you look at Rashi in the Chumash, what does Rashi translate V'nizra zera? Rashi says V'niksa, she will be clean from the Mayim Hama'aradim, from the cursed waters, or the waters that curse, that the waters that cause a curse. And V'nizra zera, if she used to have pain when she gave birth, she will give birth without pain. She used to have dark children, she'll have white children. She used to have black children, she'll have white children. So that is the meaning of V'nizra zera. Now, isn't that shocking? Rashi is supposed to be giving us the simple meaning of the verse. Why does Rashi take Rabbi Akiva's opinion instead of Rabbi Yishmael's view? Rabbi Yishmael is the simple meaning of the verse. And Rashi, who's supposed to be the simple meaning, he jumps to the other opinion. And he says it means, it doesn't mean literally. So because of that, a thought that came to my mind that maybe would answer this question is that really the verse is saying on a simple level, it's really saying that she will be able to be together, resume her relationship with her husband. Because until she drinks the Saita water, she is not allowed to be with her husband. That's the law. That once her husband suspects her, he warns her, and she is found with witnesses to have been secluded with this person she was warned against, she now needs to drink the Saita water. And until she drinks the Saita water, the husband and wife are not allowed to be together. They're not allowed to have relations. And once she drinks the Saita water, so that's what the verse is saying, V'niksa, she is now clean from the Mayim Hama'aradim, from this Saita water's curse. And not only that, V'nizra zera, she's allowed to resume relations. And maybe that's the simple meaning of the verse. And on that, Rashi says, but the fact is, it uses a strange term. It should say v'tahera maybe. She's pure now. She's permissible. It uses a word v'nizra zera, which is not the norm. So on that, Rashi says it must be hinting something. Now to go so far as Rabbi Yishmael's view, to say she's going to have a child even if she's not capable of having children, that's taking the verse. That's taking it extra far. Really, on a simple level, the reason why it says v'nizra zera just means she'll also have a blessing regarding children. In some way, she'll be blessed. It'll be less birth, and it could be both words are being interpreted. It's very interesting. V'nizra, which would mean her relationship, her conception, her pregnancy will be easier, meaning she will give birth without pain. And zera means her children will be better. If their children were ugly, they will now be beautiful, so to speak. If they were, and so each word Rashi is interpreting a meaning behind why it says each of these words, v'nizra and zera, that each of these words are interpreting why the verse goes out of its way to use these two words and not just say they're permissible together. Anyway, this is a thought to explain Rashi. Why is Rashi learning this way and not the simple meaning of v'nizra zera? Because maybe v'nizra zera really is just meant to permit them together. And therefore, the fact that the verse uses these strange wording is meant to be, and Rashi is simply trying to interpret these words. But the literal meaning maybe is to really say that they are permitted together. Possibly that's the maybe an explanation of Rashi, why Rashi doesn't take the other interpretation. Now, to answer the Gemara, I spoke it over with a few Rosh Yeshivas, a few scholars, and they seem to think that my interpretation fits very nicely in Rashi, but in the Gemara they said somehow, the commentaries don't mention it. So in the Gemara, the understanding is that Rabbi Akiva, by the way, I should mention before I tell you what they said, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael in our Gemara, it's questionable which opinion is which. Because the Gemara in Saita has it the exact opposite. That Rabbi Akiva says the first way, and Rabbi Yishmael says the second way. So one of the three people I spoke to, one of them told me, well, Rabbi Akiva commonly understands verses, learns them very meticulously, and interprets every single letter. Rabbi Yishmael is more on the liberal in his interpretation, and just it doesn't, not every single word does he hold needs to be interpreted. So could be Rabbi Yishmael just sees the term v'nizra zera as a simple meaning of blessing. And one of the other rabbis who I spoke to mentioned that they have a Masorah, they have a tradition that this verse is meant to be interpreted in a non-literal sense. So that's why that opinion would hold that way. So in the Gemara, that would seem to be the answer to David's question. In Rashi, maybe my interpretation would fit. Just a thought, but hopefully it's correct. Yes, Ben.
I want to ask a basic question.
Yeah.
You always say, the husband told her not to seclude herself with this man. What if the husband didn't say anything? He didn't know she's going to seclude herself with a man. So he's not prohibiting it. She seclude herself with a man. Will that trick work?
If she's not warned, then she can't drink the Saita water. You need to have a kinoi and a stira. Kinoi means
so
a
if
warning.
The husband finds out after
it has to be that he warns her. Right. First, it has to go through the system. It's a whole process. In other words, it's a process. There's the kinoi and the stira.
I was asking, like in the case of Abraham or Isaac, where they told their wife, "Go ahead, and save me by telling that you are a sister."
Uh-huh.
They were not prohibited from secluding themselves.
Right. Now, that there is a question. What happens if a person suspects that his wife actually, that if he really thinks that his wife sinned with someone else, if he's really convinced.
Just secluded herself.
Well, secluded is question. You don't know. People go to meetings all the time.
Yeah.
People go to doctor offices all the time. I mean, secluded is not a definite that they had relations. But if someone truly thinks that his wife had relations, then he would be prohibited, from being married to her, unless he thinks she was raped. But if not, there could be an issue. But here we're dealing with it's not a definite. It's a questionable situation, and the thing is that she was also warned. And being that she was warned and so on, that creates this is the laws of drinking the Saita water. Okay, so then the Gemara continued, and it said that there are three things that a woman is tested with, and these are the three mitzvahs that a woman is given, and the Gemara is trying to explain why does Chana say in the verse, Amosecha, your maidservant? He says it 3 times. She says it 3 times. And why does she continuously repeat the word Amosecha? And so the understanding is that she was telling Hashem that I'm aware of the 3 mitzvahs that are given to women, and that women are either tested regarding those 3 mitzvahs during childbirth, or in general, those are mitzvahs that are that a woman could be punished for. Those are 3 major mitzvahs of women, and could cause death. And have I ever sinned regarding any of those 3 mitzvahs? And that's what she was asking Hashem. Why aren't you giving me a child? Did I ever sin in the 3 main mitzvahs that women are given? Now, how does this rabbi, Rabbi Yosef Reb Chanina, see this in the word maidservant? So the simple explanation is that the word maidservant has the word death in it. Amasecha has the word mace. Inside the word amasecha, you have the word mace. And Chana was saying there are 3 things that cause death by a woman, and have I ever sinned in regarding any of those things? Now, the Marcheshvan has another explanation, and he says, that the reason why she's saying Amosecha 3 times, maidservant 3 times, is because what she's saying is, I am loyal to you in regarding these 3 mitzvahs. So in other words, it's not from the word mace inside the word Amosecha, it's from the word Amosecha, which means loyalty, a loyal maidservant. I have been loyal to you in these 3 mitzvahs of Nida, Chala, and Shabbos candles. Now, I should bring, that's the Gemara. I should bring you the Mishnah. There's a Mishnah in Tractate Shabbos, and the Mishnah says that on 3 sins, women could pass away at the time of their childbirth if they're not careful on Nida, Chala, and Hadlakas Haner. So in the Mishnah in Shabbos, in another tractate, it does mention this, that these 3 mitzvahs are very important for a woman to be extra careful on, because during childbirth is a time of danger, and therefore any time that a person is in a time of danger, they have to be extra careful about their Torah mitzvahs. And the main mitzvahs of a woman, these 3 mitzvahs are very important for a woman. They're being judged at that time, being tested, being checked, and therefore it's important. These 3 mitzvahs are very applicable when a person is in a time of danger. For a woman, that's when she gives birth. The Gemara also mentions that for a man, there's also times of danger. The time of danger that it mentions for a man is a time of danger when he goes on a bridge. In the olden days, when they had bridges, so you never knew when the bridge was going to fall and when there was going to be a hole in the bridge, especially if you went at night, or and people could fall off the bridges. So in the olden days, a bridge was considered a time of danger. So a person had to be extra careful in their Torah mitzvahs. If they wanted to go traveling, in a time of danger, that's when the angels judge you. That's when you're judged in heaven in a time of danger. So therefore, it's not only applicable to women, it's applicable to men as well. But these three mitzvahs are mitzvahs that women are generally given to women because they're in charge of lighting Shabbos candles. They're at home to light the Shabbos candles. They're the ones who bake the challah, so they separate the challah. There's a special mitzvah of women to separate challah from her dough if she bakes a certain measurement of dough, of bread, and it could apply to other hard any hard dough, thick dough. If she bakes a large amount, could apply to that as well. The mitzvah of separating challah at a certain point, depending on how many cups of flour you have to separate challah, and at another point you even have to recite a bracha. So there's an area where it's questionable if you have to we separate challah, but we don't say a bracha. And then if it's a larger amount, like for example 5 pounds of challah, 5 pounds of flour is definitely a sizable amount to recite a bracha on. But there's certain measurements for each for how much a person would have to separate challah for, and then of course the laws of family purity and going to the mikveh, and counting the appropriate days that they have to be clean days, and so on. Those laws, these are the mitzvahs. That's of course the woman does those mitzvahs. Yes, Susan.
The soita water that you referred to, is this the only time that it talks about it in the Torah, about this soita water? And it's not a real thing, am I correct? It really is it's a pseudonym
miraculous.
for something else.
It's what? What was the last sentence?
A pseudonym for something else?
No, the Hebrew word is soita. And it is called the soita, mei soita, the soita water. And I used to say that maybe the word soda comes from the Hebrew, the Bible, soita water, because it causes the stomach to blow up. So I used to think that maybe there was my own little interpretation that the word soda comes from the Bible, from the soita water. But I tried to look it up, and I didn't find. I found that they claimed some other source for the word soda, so I can't say that that's correct.
Soita. This is the only place that soita water is.
Yes, it's one place. It's mentioned in the Torah in the book of Numbers, chapter 5, and that's where that's where it has the whole. You could look it up. It's in chapter 5.
And there's no explanation of what it actually is. Ever.
No, we know what it is. It's water that they would put. They would erase a portion of the Torah. They would a scribe would write on parchment a portion that has to do with the soita laws, and he would dissolve it in that water.
Oh my.
And then she would drink that water, and it had God's name. God's name was in that water. Okay. God's name was erased.
Now I
God
get it.
says, for the purpose of peace, even my name should be erased in order to make peace between husband and wife. And so that's the soita water. So yes, we do know what it is. Yes, Ben.
Sota, maybe she wants to know. Sota means to get off the right way.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the literal meaning of the word soita. Thank you. Yeah. Sot min haderech, to turn away from the right path, because she didn't act. Even if she's innocent, she still did not act 100%
In an appropriate way, in an appropriate
a
manner.
modest way. Right.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Ben. Yes. Okay. So that's a Mishnah in Shabbos about the 3 mitzvahs of women. Doesn't mean they don't have to fulfill other mitzvahs, but that those mitzvahs are special and unique for the woman of the house. And of course, if a man is living alone, he also should light Shabbos candles. Because if there's no man separate challah, if he bakes challah, it's not that men don't have to do these mitzvahs.
Some do.
Yeah.
When you have both options, when then the woman, if there's a husband and wife, and the woman is the one baking the challah, of course she separates it, and she's the one who the mitzvah was officially placed on her to light Shabbos candles. But if she's not home, then the man should light. Even if a person is married, there are times when a man would light Shabbos candles. The Gemara continued, and the Gemara is going to interpret the one of the verses that it says Zera Anoshim. This is where we're up to, actually. Maybe about 15 lines up from the bottom. It's right in the middle of the line. V'nasato la'amasecha. We're on 31b. Again, 15 lines up from the bottom. V'nasato la'amasecha zera anoshim, and you will give to your maidservant zera anoshim. She wants a child. Now, if she wanted a male child, she wants specifically a boy, it should have said Zachar. V'nasato la'amasecha ben Zachar. A Ben, or Ben, or Zachar. She wants a male. But she says a different wording. She says Zera Anoshim, seed of men. So what does she mean by that? My Zera Anoshim. So Amar Rav Rav says Gavra beguvrin. She wants a man among men, which means someone special. Gavra beguvrin. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, this is not her child, Shmuel. This is a rabbi of the Talmud, Shmuel. And Shmuel interprets the verse, and says, Zera shemeisheach shnei anoshim. When she says Zera anoshim, again, this word is surprising. The word Zera anoshim, because really it should have used a different term if it meant a male child. So here it is interpreting the word Zera anoshim. So the first opinion was Rav. Rav said it means a man among men, that she wants to have a very special individual as a child. She's begging Hashem for a unique, distinguished man among men. And Shmuel says it means a individual who's Mosheach, who will anoint Anoshim men, 2 men. Zera shemesheach shnei Anoshim. A child who will anoint 2 men. And in this, she was correct because she actually had Shmuel Hanavi. She ended up giving birth to Shmuel. And as we saw, Shmuel anointed Shaul HaMelech, King Saul. And he also, as we will see in the afternoon class, we will see that he's going to anoint King David. So when she said she wants Zera Anoshim, the seed of men, she means the seed, a child who will anoint men. And on that, Uman Inon, who are they? Shaul v'David. King Saul, Saul and David, they are anointed from Shmuel. Rabbi Yochanan says, Zera sheshakol kishnei anoshim. A child who is equal to 2 men, 2 famous men. Who are the 2 famous men that Shmuel, she wants to be equal to? Uman Inon, who are they? Moshe v'Aaron. She wants Shmuel to be equal to Moshe and Aaron. Shenemar, as it says in a verse in Tehillim, it says Moshe v'Aaron b'chayano, Moshe and Aaron in their priesthood, u'Shmuel b'kairei Shemai, and Shmuel in calling his name. And this is implying that Shmuel is on the same league as Moshe and Aaron. And that is what it meant. Zera Anoshim, she wants a child like Moshe and Aaron. Rabbanan Amri, and the rabbis say the exact opposite of all these opinions. Zera Anoshim means Zera Shemuvla Bein Anoshim, a child who is concealed amongst men, is enclosed amongst men, which means that a regular person. And Rav Dimi explains what this means. The next sentence, Ki asa Rav Dimi Omar, when Rav Dimi came, he said, what does this mean? Loi aruch, not too tall, the loi gutz, and not short, not a midget. Loi katan. Now it says, the loi loi alam, the loi alam, not fat, the loi tzachar, and not too red, the loi gichar, and not too white. Shouldn't be too pale, it shouldn't be too red. Some say the exact opposite, that gichar means too red and tzachar means white. V'loi chacham, v'loi tipesh, and not wise, not too wise, and not too stupid. So, according to the rabbis, she was asking for a regular zera anoshim means a regular person. That's why she used this strange term. So again, we're translating the strange term that Chana used, and as I mentioned, the simple wording she should have used was a zachar, a male child. Instead, she used zera anoshim, and so therefore the rabbis, the different opinions here of what she really meant when she said zera anoshim. And the final opinion of the rabbis is that she wants a regular person. She wants her son to be regular, not to stick out. And what she's saying is she doesn't want there to be an ayin hara. That's what Rashi explains, that if he sticks out too much and people will be talking about him, then it'll possibly cause an ayin hara, and that's what she doesn't want. She wants an evil eye. Ayin hara means an evil eye. She doesn't want people to become jealous of him and then cause him to have an evil eye, and then maybe he won't be successful as he's meant to be, because the evil eye could have an effect. And therefore, she wants him to be just a regular person. That's the meaning of the word zera anoshim. Yes, Susan. Susan?
You just answered my question when you said ayin hara, and now I know what it means. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Yes, Edith. Edith, you're muted.
Yeah, you always keep referring to a son. What if it's a daughter?
But
So
she's
she
asking for
seems to want.
It's a
The
child.
fact that she said anoshim seems to imply, she didn't just say zera, she seems to imply that she really does want a son. That's what it sounds like. Now, if she did have, and I'll give you another reason, if she had a daughter, she would not be able to bring her to the Mishkan. And she keeps promising that she promised this child, that she promised that she's going to be bringing this child to the tabernacle. So she's obviously implying that she wants a son, specifically a son, who will work, who will stay with Eli.
Right, but I mean, for someone who's childless, I would think, what's wrong with the daughter?
Right. So the reason why you're saying that, you're right, that if she just wanted a child, then she would have been satisfied with a daughter. But it seems that her sincerity and her holiness was that she didn't really want a child for her own enjoyment, to feel that she has a child. She wanted an enjoyment simply to fulfill God's wishes and be able to serve Hashem in the temple. Like she wanted, that's really what she wanted. She wanted to have the ultimate fulfillment for God. And that would not have come from her having a daughter. It would only come if she had a son, because, you know, if she gets that full level of fulfillment of her son be serving Hashem. Now, of course, you know, from a personal desire, she probably would have been thrilled with the daughter. But from her spiritual desire, she wanted a son. And that really fits with what we've mentioned earlier, that her prayer, that her drunkenness that Eli saw was that he thought she wanted a child, like you're thinking, that she just wanted on from a personal level. And really what she was begging Hashem for was for Hashem's purposes. She really wanted, with a sincere feeling of simply to serve Hashem, that she feels she fulfilled her mission of, which we'll soon see a little more about in the Gemara, that her body is made to have a child. She should be, she should fulfill that goal. If she's created as a woman to have a child, let her do that, and that child would serve Hashem. So now we're going to continue with the next piece of Gemara. Ani ha'isha, I am the woman, and Ani ha'isha hanitzebes, that is standing imcha bazeh, with you in this. And Rashi over here explains that means that she is standing with Eli, and she is speaking to Eli, and she says, I am the woman who is standing with you, bazeh, with this. That stood with you. Hanitzebes imcha bazeh. Now, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Now, so what does that mean? So the commentaries debate exactly what this means regarding what was Eli's situation. Was Eli standing or was Eli sitting? But the Gemara is going to understand from here that a person who's davening somehow creates some type of a law around them that other people cannot sit in their daled amos, in their 4 cubits. So a person who's davening creates a prohibition for others to sit within their daled amos, and that's what we'll see here. The question is, was Eli really standing with her, and that's why he stood up? So does this verse means I am the woman, hanitzebes imcha? Let me just pull a Shmuel over here. So the story is that Chana had davened to Hashem, and then she left, and then the next time she came back, she is coming to bring her son there, and she wants to bring a sacrifice, and they're going to end up leaving Shmuel with Eli. So she says that this is the child that I prayed for, and so on. And she says, I am the woman who was standing by you here praying to Hashem. I am that woman. So she brings this child to Eli. She says these words. When she brings the child to Eli, she says, I am the woman who was standing with you to daven to Hashem. It's interesting because it seems like it's Hanitzeva sounds like a current state, not a past tense, but a present. Hanitzeves. But that's the meaning, is that it's I am the woman who was standing by you here praying to Hashem, and so the the Gemara interprets it to mean that I was standing with you, meaning you were also standing. Now, it sounds like he was also standing. Why was Eli standing and not sitting? Because the verse also mentions that he was sitting there. If you look in the verse when she's there, the Eli HaKoyen Yoshev Al Hakisei. So if you look back, and this is important to know, if you look back at the story when she's actually doing her prayer, it says Eli HaKoyen is sitting on his chair, Al Mezuzos Heichal Hashem, at the near the doorpost of the sanctuary. So, and she was bitter, and she prayed to Hashem. So it mentions earlier, and when it talks about the actual story, it says Eli sitting on the key by the sanctuary of Hashem on his chair. And it says she's bitter and she davens to Hashem and she cries out and she makes this promise and so on. And then, of course, 2 years later, she comes and she's bringing Shmuel, her son, to Eli. And she says, I am the woman who stood with you here to pray to Hashem. So the question is, so was Eli sitting before? Was he sitting or was he standing? Yes, Ezra.
It's possible that, when he saw what she was doing, he walked over to her to basically say those things to her. And because he hadn't heard what she was saying. And then when she said what, that she's praying to Hashem, etc., he also he blessed her. So how does he bless her? He doesn't bless her by sitting on the chair. He blesses by standing in front of Hashem and giving her that kind of a blessing. So that's the way I understand what she said, that I stood by you, that you at that time gave me that particular blessing.
So Rashi seems to be learning similar to what you're saying, that, he was sitting, and then when she started davening, he got up. Whether it was to, the simple understanding of our Gemara is that he got up because she was davening. So in other words, he was sitting before, and now he stood up in order to, because she's davening, and that's what the Gemara here says. Ani ha'isha hanitzebes imcha bazeh. I am the woman who was standing with you praying. That she mentions later that I'm the one who was 2 years ago standing with you here, and meaning that you got up and stood with me when I davened, and you stood because of mikan. From here we see from here we see that it's prohibited to sit within 4 amos of tefillah because Eli was standing, and that's even though he initially was sitting, but he got up in order to stand while she is davening. Yes, Susan.
Maybe he was trying to make sure it was the same woman. Maybe she looked entirely different. Maybe she gained a lot of weight or she lost a lot of weight. Right? Why did she say, I was the one who stood with you? Why does she have to?
We're gonna understand why she said that. I mean, if you read the story is that she's about to give her son 2 years later to Eli, and she says, by the way, I'm going to be giving, I prayed for this son 2 years ago with you, and I got this son, and you gave me your blessing, and now I'm going to give him to you as someone who's going to serve you and help you out, be your assistant.
Why did she have to say that? That's what I don't understand. Why did she have to reiterate that? Why is she saying?
She said it once.
For me,
she said it once that I am the woman. Now he sees a lot of people. So she mentions maybe he'll remember her that she prayed, and there was a story when she prayed. So it's not surprising at all. It's not surprising at all, Susan. He sees a lot of people. There was actually a story that he might remember. Normally, he probably doesn't remember most people who come through. Do you think the public's person that's brings up your?
We're talking about she was his wife.
No. Okay, you got the whole story wrong. You got the whole story wrong. We're dealing with Eli, who's the rabbi, the Kohen Gadol in the Mishkan.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, we're not dealing with the wife. Okay, you're dealing with someone who's in the Mishkan. There are thousands of people coming to bring sacrifice.
Now I get it.
And thousands of people coming through. and men, women. So, and he's definitely not looking at each individual.
Okay.
So, and here there was a story that happened, and she said, maybe you remember, when she's about to bring her son to be educated and learn with Eli, she's mentioning that this story happened. Okay, so that's Rashi's way of understanding this. Now, Taisus here is a little confusing because there's different. It seems to be a mistake or a question if there's a question on the actual text of Taisus. Is it two explanations or one? But definitely Taisus seems to have an explanation that Eli was actually not sitting with her, but he was, not standing with her, but he was sitting because he was outside of the 4 amos where she was. And therefore he was sitting. But when that's why it spells it imcha with an extra hey. Normally the word imcha could be spelled ayin mem chaf without the hey. And the fact that it has an extra hey is hinting to the fact that because he was in the 5th amma 5 cubits away, not 4 cubits away, therefore he was able to sit. But had he been within the 4 cubits, he would need to stand. And this is hinted to in the fact that the story, the earlier story that we read that happened 2 years earlier, it mentions that Eli was sitting. So here it's explaining that imcha, that was with you, but not exactly sitting, was standing with you. He was sitting, but it explains why he was sitting, because he was imcha with the letter hey. Hey is the numerical value of 5. 5 means he was sitting because because he was 5 cubits away, but really if he would have been in 4 cubits, he would have had to stand. Yes, Ben.
There could be one more explanation on both of them. One, when it says he was sitting, that means he was in charge. He was on his job. He was in charge. And for her to say nitzevet, it could mean not literally, but that she was with him talking about that case.
Very interesting, because what's interesting is that the Beis Yosef, there's discussion in the commentaries. There's a lot of discussion about this law, and the Beis Yosef wants to learn that Yoshev could mean that he was waiting. So Yoshev, the way you're explaining it, Yoshev, but so the commentaries ask on the Beis Yosef, what does he mean? He's waiting. It says al hakise. It says on the chair. How could you say Yoshev could mean waiting, but not there? There it says al hakise. So according to what you're saying, maybe it actually answers that question that they ask, that it means he's doing his job. Yoshev al hakise. That it doesn't mean literally. It means he's sort of like waiting around doing his but it's not literally sitting on the chair. It means doing his mission. Yoshev al hakise could be fulfilling his mission of waiting around and seeing what goes on. That's a interesting explanation. Okay, so in any event, the question really that has to be discussed. Wait, was Ezra had a question? Ezra, I'm sorry, Ezra, you had a question.
Go ahead, Rabbi, continue.
Okay, so the discussion here the real discussion here is, so what is the reason why is a person not allowed to sit when within 4 cubits of a person standing? Now, I will also mention that based on these reasons, there will be halachic differences depending on the reason. What are the halachic differences? Number one is what happens if you yourself are saying Shema or davening? Are you allowed to stay seated? What happens if you are learning Torah? Are you allowed to be seated next to someone who's davening? What happens if you're sitting behind the person, but you're within 4 cubits, are you allowed to, to stay seated? You're behind them. So this is so it's prohibited to sit down within 4 cubits of a person davening. What is the reason for it? So the first reason, one of the explanations that's given is that the Shekhinah is found around a person who's davening. In other words, we've explained that a person saying the Shemona Esrei, we're talking about someone who's davening the Shemona Esrei. He's standing, saying Shemona Esrei. So you want to sit down next to him. So the thing is that when he's davening Shemona Esrei, so we know you're supposed to imagine that you're right in front of Hashem, right? That's how you're supposed to imagine. You're supposed to feel that so the truth is you are right in front of Hashem because the divine presence is more revealed around you. The Shekhinah is around you. Now, because the Shekhinah is around you, no one else should sit down there either because you are davening Shemona Esrei. So really, you should, people around you should not sit down either because that's where the Shekhinah is. Now, another explanation is that you might cause the person who's davening to be interrupted. Another reason is because maybe he is saying his prayer that's private. And so if you sit down next to him, you're sort of listening, eavesdropping on his conversation with Hashem. Another reason is that it looks like you don't want to accept the yoke of heaven that he is accepting upon himself.
Rabbi.
Now, that explanation is questionable. There's a question, not questionable. There is a question that's asked on it, and that is that accepting the yoke of heaven is mainly Kriya Shema. So that would seem to apply to Shema. When the congregation is saying the Shema, it shouldn't look, you shouldn't do anything else but say Shema. Why is it said regarding Tefillah? But in any event, that's one of the explanations, that it implies that you're not accepting the yoke of heaven that this man is accepting because he's davening, and therefore, therefore you can't sit down within his 4 cubits. Yes, Moshe.
It almost appears like you're saying that you're a zimmi to Hashem as well. You're not standing up and showing reverence to Hashem. It's because maybe this.
So that was the first explanation, that the Shekhinah is there. The Shekhinah is there, and you're just going and sitting down. So I think that fits with the first explanation.
Right.
Here it's more not that you're not showing reverence to Hashem, but it shows you don't want to accept Hashem's yoke because they're doing it and you're not. Someone else is davening and you're not. So it's from him doing it that, it's implying that you don't want that. Now, another explanation is that whenever someone does a mitzvah, you're really supposed to stand. When they do a mitzvah that involves standing, so people are supposed to stand before them. And so these are a number of the reasons that are mentioned regarding this law. And so the question is, so what about sitting down behind the person? So sitting down behind the person, it would seem like if the Shekhinah surrounds the person, all 4 amos, it would seem like maybe you can't sit down. You can't sit down because the Shekhinah is also behind the person. But if the reason is that you might interrupt him, so if you're sitting down behind him, maybe it won't interrupt him. The reason is because you're going to eavesdrop on him, so maybe then it applies even if you're behind him. Maybe you could still hear him possibly. according to the reason of your friend is accepting the yoke of heaven and you're not, I don't know, behind him, I don't know, I guess it could look like you're not interested, or yeah, I guess maybe it would apply there. I don't know. That one is, I'm not sure if that reason would apply if you're sitting behind him. According to the other reason of I missed one reason. I missed one final reason, and that is that the place where a person davens becomes holy. It's called Admas Kodesh. It has a certain kedusha, creates a certain holiness, and you have to respect that place while the person is davening within his area, within his four cubits, and so that's the according to that reason. I guess it's similar to the Shechina, but the concept of the Shechina means that Hashem rests there. This explanation is more that it becomes holy. It's a holy place. You have to respect the location because a mitzvah was done there. So the first explanation is the Shechina is there. This explanation is it's called Admas Kodesh, comes a holy place. So according to this, but it would seem even if you're behind the person, it would still maybe apply. And
Rabbi, you're saying that the place where you daven becomes holy. It's like a temple, correct?
Listen, it doesn't stay that way while you're davening within 4 cubits.
Only while you're davening, the place.
Yeah, while you're davening, the within 4 cubits of where you are, that has a call.
And what if you walk around in your home davening? When if you were walking around davening because you're so familiar with the davening?
Yeah.
So
we're talking about. Just 1 second, Susan. We're talking about the Shemona Esrei, the Shemona Esrei prayer, which you don't walk around while you're doing.
Okay.
This is the Amidah prayer, where you're full concentration and of prayer. Okay, so now the other question is, what about if a person is learning Torah? If a person is learning Torah, would this apply? Because on the one hand, you're studying Torah, but on the other hand, does it look like you're not accepting the yoke of heaven? So not accepting the yoke of heaven maybe would be a problem, because learning Torah is not exactly accepting the yoke of heaven. You're not talking, it's not the same. It's doing a mitzvah, but you're not accepting the yoke of heaven necessarily. So there's question about learning Torah. The only problem with that is that what was Eli doing? You would assume that Eli was studying Torah while he was waiting for Chana. So we're thinking that Eli stood up. Sounds like even if you're learning Torah, you got to stand up, because Eli must have been learning Torah. You think he was going around without learning Torah? He must have been learning Torah, and yet at the same time, or at least according to Rashi's explanation, he was standing, even according to Taisus, if he was within the 4 cubits, he would have stood up. What do you mean? Stood up? He's learning Torah. He shouldn't have had to stand up. So it sounds like even if you're learning Torah, you have to stand up. However, the thing is that definitely he was learning Torah, but he wasn't saying words of Torah. He might have been thinking words of Torah. Thinking words of Torah is not the same as learning Torah. And therefore, if he was really learning Torah and saying words of Torah, then he actually could have sat down. He didn't have to stand up. But if you're thinking words of Torah, if you're just thinking words of Torah, then you actually would have to stand up, and in respect of the Shechina and so on. So anyway, there's a lot of discussion about these laws, and it is mentioned in Shulchan Aruch about not sitting. We'll talk maybe more tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Sei gesund.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.